A millionaire lives surrounded by luxury and superficiality, but his life changes when he meets a humble young woman who saves an abandoned dog. When family secrets threaten to tear them apart, will love triumph over revenge? Let us know in the comments which city you are watching from and rate this story from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very valuable. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories like this. The sound of loud laughter and pulsating music echoed through Ryan Anderson's luxurious apartment, a haven of modern extravagance. The walls were adorned with contemporary art, and crystal chandeliers filtered the light into golden rays. It was a glamorous and vibrant scene, but behind this shiny facade lay a deep emptiness. At 35, Ryan held the position of CEO of one of the largest tech companies in the United States. But wealth and success did not fill the lonely void his life had become. He watched the happy faces around him, people who seemed more interested in his status than in his true essence. Friends, allies. Ryan no longer knew. The conversations always seemed to circle back to money, business, and that relentless pursuit of power. And so, while toasts were raised and laughter was shared, Ryan felt like a mere spectator, a ghost wandering through a world that had never truly welcomed him. Sitting in a corner, he took a sip of champagne, his gaze lost in the large windows overlooking the stunning city view. It was the same view he admired every night, but it no longer brought the same thrill. He remembered his childhood, lost in dreams and innocence, and smiled melancholically. That child who believed money could buy happiness had grown up without understanding what truly mattered. The party continued, but like everything in his life, it felt overflowing with superficiality. Laughing at lame jokes, he decided he needed some time outdoors. Breathing the fresh city air could clear his mind and restore a part of the vitality he felt he had lost. So, he set his glass down on the table and stepped away from the crowd. Meanwhile, in a completely different corner of the streets of San Diego, Laura Smith woke up in her small apartment where sunlight gently streamed through the window, illuminating her simple life. At just 25, she was studying veterinary medicine and working part-time at an animal shelter. Her life was filled with love and compassion for those who, like the animals she rescued, needed help. Laura was the kind of person who, even with little, cared deeply for the well-being of others. The sounds of the city began to invade her space as she got up, preparing a quick coffee for herself and a snack to take to the shelter. The simple act of caring for the animals was what truly brought joy to her heart. Over the years, Laura had formed a strong bond with her neighbors, friends who supported her and with whom she shared laughter and tears. Her genuine smile captivated those around her, bringing a familiar warmth to every interaction. The love for her family, now lost amid past tragedies, drove her to fight every day for a better future. After her coffee, Laura decided it was time to head to the shelter. That day, she had promised to rescue a dog that had been wandering the streets, an act that reinforced her personal mission. With an adventurous spirit, she hopped on her bike and pedaled through the streets, amidst the laughter and shouts of children playing in the parks, feeling alive and fulfilled. When she arrived at the park, she heard a distant bark. It was a small, skinny, dirty dog, hesitating between bushes and puddles. Laura got off her bike and approached slowly. The challenge was to rescue that animal, which, noticing her approach, recoiled in fear. With care and gentleness, she sat on the ground, inching closer. "Hey, little guy," she whispered, extending her hand. "Come here, don't be afraid." Her eyes were filled with kindness, and that connection seemed to transcend words. It was at that moment, while Laura tried to calm the dog, that Ryan decided to take a random path, drawn by a distant thought and a need to disconnect from the mundane. As soon as he spotted Laura, his heart raced. It wasn't just the image of a young woman, but the energy she radiated. The scene of a woman saving an abandoned animal touched him deeply. He stopped, watching her from afar. Something in her kindness and determination drew him in, as if she were made of an essence he had long lost. He needed to be strong, right? But as he approached, a whirlwind of emotions took over him. This is a scene worthy of a movie, Ryan thought, unaware that at that moment the story that would unfold would be more intense and real than anything he had ever known. "I know you're scared, but you'll be okay. I promise," she said to the dog, giving it her full attention. Ryan was so immersed in her softness that he couldn't help it. He moved closer, and in doing so, interrupted the connection. Are you hungry to make everyone feel safe?" His voice sounded firmer than he had felt in a long time. Laura looked up, a wary expression in her eyes. "And what are you doing here? Just watching, or are you a hero in action?" she replied, crossing an invisible barrier with a mix of sarcasm and curiosity. And so, at that crossroads of destinies, Ryan and Laura began to chart a path that would intertwine their lives in ways neither could have imagined. Two distinct worlds, initially opposites, but which, when joined, could create a new destiny filled with love, pain, and overcoming. Ryan, somewhat caught off guard. Surprised by Laura's biting response, Ryan let out a small, nervous laugh. His pride, an armor that had always defended him in boardrooms and parties, began to crumble in the face of the genuine interactions unfolding before him. He had known her for only a few minutes, but the intensity of each word, each exchanged glance, was enough to question the validity of all the material wealth he had accumulated. "You can call me a hero if I manage to help this little guy find a home," he joked, trying to break the ice that was starting to form between them. The tension, however, still hung in the air like a fog, leaving their hearts uncertain. "So let's go, hero. What did you bring?" Laura smiled, any trace of skepticism on her face slowly dissipating. Ryan realized that seeing her smile sparked something within him, as if a piece of his essence was calling back. He had the power to uplift her, or bring her down. That small exchange of energy seemed to cloak his insecurities like a protective mantle. As he stepped closer, Ryan decided to take a leap forward, secretly wishing to connect on a deeper level. He knew the pains were beginning to intertwine, that there would be risks, but it was an exhilarating emotion. "I think I might have something in my car. A collar I found a few weeks ago," he said, his tone revealing a confidence he never knew he possessed. Laura raised her eyebrows, intrigued. How much improvisation and attention! "A collar? For a dog?" She laughed, a warm laugh that touched Ryan's heart. He realized how precious moments like that were, the spontaneity and lightness just a few steps away from what had become his overwhelmed and heavy daily life. "Oh, not just any collar. One of those you find being sold at craft fairs. I'm sure it will fit your little friend's neck. Let's see." And as he spoke, he quickly turned to his truck, parked just a few blocks away. Laura watched him go, an intrigued look still on her face. There was a pulsing curiosity, a desire to know more about this man who hid behind a facade of wealth. Ryan returned quickly, crouching down in front of the dog again and extending what he had found. "I see a lot of dignity in many forms of life, even in those that seem forgotten," he said, as the shiny collar swayed gently in his hands. Laura moved closer, observing the relaxed scene. "No, that's not worth it for him yet. That empty look on his face is one of distrust. What we need to do is earn his trust." And with that phrase, Laura began to move as she spoke, watching the dog's reaction, showing how to soften the connection. Hours began to pass in moments, and the two were so immersed in that shared interaction that time felt like a mist that didn't affect them. Between playful banter and smiles, revelations and laughter, Ryan began to untangle himself from the chains that bound him to his superficial and egotistical life. And Laura, on the other hand, felt a wave of renewed hope blossoming in her heart. The connection between them solidified with each conversation, each gentle gesture. Ryan shared stories from his childhood, allowing himself to open small windows to the world hidden behind his life as an executive. I used to have adventures around every corner, but as I grew up, I learned to act as expected. I was shaped by society, and in doing so, lost part of who I really was. But you remind me of who I was before all this weight, he said, his sincerity cutting through the air around them. Laura smiled, that smile awakening a life in Ryan. Sometimes we need to lose to find what really matters. It's like caring for what's hidden beneath the dirt, whether in animals or in ourselves. That exchange of thoughts left Ryan surprised. He wasn't sure if he was ready for it. The love for connection was growing, but he also knew that the world he lived in could crumble, that there were invisible barriers and potential problems. But what they both didn't know was that the atmosphere was about to be broken by the reality surrounding them. The desire to build something genuine, how beautiful the moment was, only fueled the flame of their personalities. And so the day passed. The sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Laura said goodbye to Ryan, her heart a little lighter, knowing that, for a brief moment, two souls had met and danced in the tender uncertainty of sincere glances. "See you tomorrow, hero?" she asked, her voice full of sweet expectation. "Absolutely. I'll be here," Ryan confirmed, his smile widening on his face, still wondering what the future might hold. As Laura walked away, Ryan watched her, fascinated, aware that this girl could be the breath of fresh air he so desperately needed. He was ready to break down the barriers he had built, even knowing that greater challenges lay ahead. However, life has its own paths. What was supposed to be a light and casual meeting was beginning to transform into something complex, intertwined with untold stories and hidden secrets. The two worlds, seemingly distinct, met at a crucial moment, and the direction they would take could affect them more than they ever imagined. The next morning, San Diego woke up vibrant, and Laura felt absorbed by the memory of Ryan. She knew she had found someone special, but the idea of opening her heart again left her anxious. The weight of the past and the wounds life had imposed on her still haunted her, plunging her into a sea of uncertainties. Meanwhile, Ryan wrestled with his thoughts, navigating a sea of expectations and insecurities. The desire to understand her and the connection was strong, but he felt that the opposing worlds they inhabited could create an insurmountable barrier. After a hectic day, Laura decided to go to the animal shelter where she worked. Upon arriving, the energy and camaraderie of the volunteers revitalized her spirit. A colleague called out to her with enthusiasm, "Look how Max is improving." The sparkle in Laura's eyes quickly dimmed as she remembered the past and the pain that she and her family had suffered from the greed that had devastated their lives. On the other hand, Ryan gathered his courage and decided to visit her. He wanted to get to know her better and, at the same time, do something meaningful for the shelter. When he arrived, the warm and lively atmosphere enveloped him. But upon seeing Laura, his heart surged with intense emotions. Their eyes met, and even without words, an invisible bridge was formed between them. "I decided to come back, hero," Ryan said with a nervous laugh, trying to break the tension. Laura, hearing the teasing, responded with a radiant smile. However, as they discussed improvements for the shelter, Laura couldn't help but feel concerned, seeing that Ryan still didn't fully understand the reality of the place. "Ryan, it's not just about raising funds. This place is an extension of who we are. It's complex. We care for lives here." Her words carried a weight that Ryan had never faced before. "I want to help, Laura. "It may seem simple, but I feel we can do something great together," Ryan asserted, determined to commit. In response, Laura realized that he wasn't just interested in projects, but there was a deeper desire to genuinely connect. At that moment, the tension between them grew. Laura hesitated, remembering the scars left by the past and what Ryan represented of her pain. Yet there was something about him that attracted her, an authenticity she couldn't ignore. So when Ryan proposed creating an event at the shelter, Laura hesitated. "You don't understand, Ryan. Events aren't the answers, especially not for the challenges we face here." But Ryan, aware of the depth of the conversation, insisted it was an opportunity to join forces and bring fresh air. The conversation intensified, and the tension grew when suddenly Sarah, Ryan's sister, appeared, interrupting the moment. Her disapproving gaze quickly turned to her brother. "Ryan, what are you doing here? You're not going to get involved with these people again, are you?" The atmosphere shifted instantly. Laura and Ryan exchanged looks of surprise and discomfort. This new presence brought forth dilemmas and wounds that could complicate the bond they were beginning to form. Sarah, a figure who always criticized Ryan's temptations, reinforced the idea that his connection with Laura was unacceptable. "It's just a visit," Ryan replied, trying to maintain his composure, but defensiveness immediately emerged. Sarah was uncomfortable with her brother's intentions to mingle with the humble community that lay below his social level. The rising tension became suffocating. Laura watched the scene with a sense of helplessness. The connection that had begun to form between her and Ryan felt threatened. "Maybe we should stop here," she whispered, feeling torn between the desire to protect herself and the wish to let love into her life. Ryan, aware that from that moment on the pressure would increase, decided to confront the situation. "Wait, Laura. Don't leave me like this. What I'm trying to build here is important, and you're a part of it." But the weakness surrounding Laura was hard to bear. Sarah's words echoed in her mind, making her hesitate between opening up to Ryan or protecting herself from new suffering. "Maybe the best thing is for us to distance ourselves. The life you live doesn't match mine, Ryan. We need some time." And in that exchange, she felt more lost than ever. As Laura walked away, Ryan stood rooted to the ground, aware that this distance could create a chasm between them, a chasm that already existed but had become more visible from that moment on. The two separate worlds, which in their initial interactions seemed to burst into a new possibility, now found themselves threatened by the echoing oppressions of their realities. The future that lay ahead was uncertain, and the old shadows loomed over their lives, testing a love that was beginning to blossom between them, but still didn't know if it was ready to face the challenges ahead. Laura felt weakened as she walked home, Ryan's words still echoing in her mind. There was a mix of desire and fear battling within her. The connection that was starting to bloom between them, so promising and intense, now seemed threatened by the harsh reality of their circumstances. What had they really built in their few interactions, and would it be strong enough to bear the weight of their pasts? Meanwhile, Ryan encountered Sarah, who was waiting for him outside the animal shelter. Her expression, a mix of disappointment and concern, reflected exactly what he didn't want to face. "I don't understand why you're so hung up on this girl, Ryan. She has nothing to do with our life," Sarah said, her voice laden with disdain. "You don't understand," Ryan retorted firmly. "What I feel for Laura is different. She's real, Sarah, and that makes me want to be a better person." What he couldn't convey was how much Laura inspired him to look beyond the boundaries he had built throughout his life. The conversation turned into an emotional battlefield. Sarah tried to convince him to give up on Laura, while Ryan insisted that she was worth fighting for. However, her words pierced his mind like thorns. Each criticism burned more into the certainty he had about what he wanted. This conflict placed an even heavier burden on his shoulders. At home, Laura tried to distract herself with her journal, but her mind was elsewhere. Once again, Ryan's face invaded her thoughts. His sincerity and the way he looked at her made her heart race. Deep down, she knew she needed to give a chance to what she felt, even if it meant facing the shadows of her past. That same night, unable to sleep, Laura decided she needed some time for herself, away from the voices insisting on telling her what to do. The ocean, with its soothing waves, was the perfect place to lose herself in thought. Upon arriving at the beach, she sat on the sand, gazing at the stars and reflecting on everything she had inherited from her ancestors, values, criticisms, and the losses that shaped her. Soon Ryan decided he could not leave things as they were. The idea of not fighting for Laura left him restless. He had always been the type of person who conformed to others' expectations, but now he wanted to break that pattern. That night, he also headed to the beach, seeking not only Laura, but a space to understand himself and give voice to what his heart was yearning for her. When he arrived, the beauty of the moon reflected on the water was almost magical, but nothing compared to his astonishment at seeing Laura sitting facing the sea. He approached cautiously, not wanting to startle her. As he got closer, Laura turned, and their eyes met in a moment that felt suspended in time. "Hi," he said softly, a sense of relief washing over him for finally seeing her. "Hey," Laura replied, a shy smile blooming on her face, even though she still felt the lingering waves of tension between them. "I couldn't stay away. We need to talk," Ryan declared, firm yet gentle. "I want to understand your fears, and I know you have them. I have them too." Laura was taken aback by his sincerity. "Ryan, don't you see how much this difference in our lives weighs?" Laura said, a weakness in her voice as she looked toward the horizon, battling with herself not to give in to insecurity. "Sometimes we need to accept that we don't have control over everything. What we can control is how we react to what comes our way," Ryan replied, stepping forward, determined gazes crossing. The fervor of the conversation was electrifying, and the words were not just rhetorical, but a testament to how much they were willing to invest in each other. "That's what I want to do, Laura. I want to invest in us. I can't and don't want to lose this opportunity to explore what's blossoming between us," he continued, gesturing with his hands. "I don't want you to be afraid of what you feel." The words brought a mix of hope and dread to Laura's mind. She knew she needed to open up, but the past held her back. "Ryan, my past is difficult. The experiences I've had weren't just about challenges, but losses of people I loved. What's expected of me is not to get involved again, not after all this," she confessed, vulnerability making the air around them feel heavier. "But who says we have to follow what others expect? We can carve our own path, Laura. You have to allow yourself to feel, even if fear is present," Ryan concluded, his determination unwavering. At that moment, Laura realized that love was a choice, and she could choose to take the risk. "Maybe you're right. We need to deal with what we feel without the expectations of others." The strength in her words grew, and as the cool breeze caressed their faces, the connection between them felt stronger than ever. "Let's do this together, Laura. We don't need to rush." "One step at a time," Ryan whispered, extending his hand, a gesture of support and understanding. With tears in her eyes, Laura accepted his hand, and the touch was electric. Understanding that, regardless of the shadows that arose, they could face everything together. The ocean before them swayed, but their souls were becoming more anchored to one another, like fairies dancing in the night breeze. The journey was just beginning, but they both knew they had at least decided to face the unknown together. The sea breeze intensified, carrying away the accumulated tension between Laura and Ryan. In that moment, They barely realized that their lives were about to intertwine in a way that would challenge not only their expectations, but also the limitations they had imposed on themselves. The promises made under the stars were just the beginning of a journey filled with challenges and discoveries. In the days that followed, Laura and Ryan committed to exploring what was blossoming between them with caution, but also with palpable enthusiasm. They began to meet daily, after Laura's work at the animal shelter, where they both dedicated time to build a stronger bond. The project to revitalize the shelter brought them together, turning every conversation into an opportunity to strengthen their connection. Ryan started visiting the shelter regularly, not only to support Laura, but also to learn the stories of all the animals and the struggles faced by people like her, who dedicated their lives to helping. With each meeting, he fell more in love with Laura's determination and kindness. For her, he became a beacon of hope, someone she could trust to support her daily challenges. One morning, Laura walked into one of the service rooms and spotted Ryan talking to one of the volunteers. He was smiling, his hands gesturing as if he were telling a funny story. Upon noticing Laura's presence, Ryan greeted her with a genuine smile, making her heart race. However, amidst that seemingly simple scene, a restlessness began to grow in Laura's mind. Could she really open her heart to someone like Ryan, even though he was so willing to understand and accept her fears? But her uncertainties were interrupted by an interruption. Sarah, Ryan's sister, appeared at the animal shelter. Her gaze quickly turned critical as she noticed how involved her brother was in this new world. "Ryan, what are you doing here? I thought you were coming to work." She looked at Laura, disapproval explicit on her face. "You shouldn't be getting involved like this. This isn't what he needs." Laura felt a chill run down her spine upon hearing Sarah's words. The criticisms echoed in her mind, and her confidence wavered. It was as if that single phrase could dismantle everything they had built. Ryan, sensing the situation, intervened. "Calm down, Sarah. I'm here by my own choice. We need to understand that what we're doing here is important." Ryan's defensiveness didn't go unnoticed, but the atmosphere was heavy. Laura stood up from her corner, feeling once again cast into the role of the insecure one. "It seems like I'm a problem then," she tried to downplay, but her voice trembled. "I understand if you want to distance yourself, Ryan, if this is complicated for you." "Don't say that," Ryan protested, taking her hand. The connection they had was palpable. "This is where life really happens. It's okay if you feel threatened, but that's not what I want, Laura. You and I are in this together." Ryan's words transformed her insecurities into a mix of strength and hope. "But having your sister around, trying to pull us apart," Laura hesitated, "isn't easy." The tension in the air grew heavy. The discomfort of Sarah's presence was evident. She knew Ryan would likely have to choose between family expectations and what he was building with Laura. Sarah, noticing the conflict between the two, decided to change her approach. "Look, I don't want you to get hurt, Ryan. I'm just trying to protect you. This woman lives in a different world than yours." However, something in the way Laura held herself and looked at Ryan made Sarah reconsider her strategy. "What if her life isn't a barrier?" Ryan retorted, frustration growing. "What if we're talking about something beyond obligations and social classes? Isn't that how life works?" At that moment, Laura decided she could no longer remain silent. "I'm not a problem, Sarah, and I'm not a fraud. What I'm doing here is real. What I feel for Ryan is real," she said, her tone firm. "If you can't see that, that's your problem." Sarah's eyes widened at Laura's defense, but she didn't know how to respond. It was the first time she saw her strength. Yet she doubled down on her protectiveness over her brother. "I just hope you don't get hurt in the middle of this game. I'm not here to oppose you. I just want to make sure Ryan doesn't lose his way." "I'm not losing myself," Ryan said, finally confronting his sister's criticisms. I'm choosing this journey because I believe in us. Believing in Laura isn't a weakness, it's a strength. After that intense moment, the dialogue didn't end without finding a small space for compassion. The seed of understanding began to sprout between them, but the romantic setting bore the marks of conflict. Until Sarah finally nodded, a sign that she might relent, but uncertainty still hung in the air like a cloud. Maybe I should give this a chance, Sarah admitted reluctantly, a mix of distrust and acceptance in her words. But I'm protective, Ryan. Just remember that you could also get hurt. As the discussion dissipated, Laura took a deep breath. The weight had lessened, but the barriers between their worlds remained challenging. However, what had begun as a fragile love now seemed to have gained solidity, a promise that they would fight together. Love could be complex, but Laura and Ryan were determined to discover its strength. The renewed connection between them made Laura feel as if she were emerging from a thick fog. When they met again alone, there was no more room for doubt. They were ready to face the storms to come, together. The morning light illuminated the shoreline, turning the waves into shimmering golds as Laura and Ryan walked side by side on the beach. The conversation with Sarah still echoed in Laura's mind, but at that moment, the smell of salt and the sound of the waves made her feel alive and hopeful. "Do you often come here to think?" Laura asked, breaking the silence that hung between them. The curiosity in her voice was sincere. "Yeah," Ryan replied, looking out at the sea. "Here I feel free from the expectations my family imposes. It's where I can clear my mind and find out who I really am." "I understand. For me, the beach has always been a refuge. I've talked to the sea so many times, seeking strength to deal with life," Laura confessed, smiling slightly. The conversation flowed naturally, like the ebb and flow of the waves. But amid the lightness, an insecurity began to manifest again in Laura. Her relationship with Ryan was something new and at the same time terrifying. "I just don't want you to feel pressured to be with me because of all this. I don't want to be a burden," she said, more vulnerable than she would have liked to admit. "Laura, you're not a burden. I want you to know that I want to be here by choice. I truly believe in us," Ryan said, his penetrating gaze conveying sincerity. "I'm willing to dive into this sea of uncertainties by your side. And I want you to know that even with my fears, I'm willing to face this. Every day I feel stronger. It's as if you're freeing me from chains I didn't even know I had," Laura replied, feeling a wave of emotion. Ryan then decided it was time to open his heart. "I come from a family that always..." Ryan had high expectations for me. "The pressure to be the ideal hurts me. And often, I wonder if I'm good enough. You're so much more than that. You're genuine, and that's rare," Laura said, resting her hand on his arm. The touch brought a warmth that made Ryan feel motivated to open up even more. "That's what I want. I want to be able to love without fear and be loved for who I am, without masks. With you, I feel like that's possible," Ryan said, a smile blooming on his face. As the sun rose, their shadows began to dissipate, and the conversation became a safe space where they could express themselves freely. Laura realized that together they were forming something special, but like any journey, challenges were inevitable. At that moment, a noise in the distance broke the softness of the morning. A group of surfers was preparing to enter the ocean. Ryan watched them intently, a sparkle dancing in his eyes. "Let's go surfing," he exclaimed. Laura laughed, surprised by his sudden excitement. "I've never surfed in my life. What if I fall?" "That's exactly what makes it more fun. Besides, even if you fall, I'll be here to help you. Let's give it a try. It's worth it," Ryan encouraged, pulling her toward the water. With a mix of anxiety and excitement, they launched into the adventure. As they grabbed the boards and ventured into the waves, adrenaline took over. Even without practice, the desire to have fun outweighed the fear. Amidst falls and laughter, Laura saw surfing as a perfect metaphor for life, full of ups and downs, but always filled with opportunities to get back up. They challenged each other, and each attempt to surf became a dance. Laura laughed as she toppled to the side, and Ryan, always by her side, enjoyed every moment. "When you fall, you get up and try again. Just like in relationships," he said, and she knew he was right. After some time in the ocean, they were exhausted but radiant. The sun had moved higher, and the traces of fear that Laura felt were now replaced by a sense of freedom. They found a spot on the sandy shore, sitting side by side, with the water wetting their feet. "That was amazing!" Laura exclaimed, still catching her breath. "I feel like we can conquer anything." "Exactly," Ryan agreed, looking at the horizon. "Love isn't just about being together in the good times, but also lifting each other up in the storms. No matter how tough things get, I know we can overcome." In that moment, Laura felt closer to him than ever. Between smiles and knowing glances, the connection between them seemed to strengthen. The relationship that began amidst doubts and insecurities was transforming into a union based on trust and passion. As they watched the sunset, Laura decided they were ready to face whatever came next. "We can overcome the challenges that arise. No matter what obstacles we face, together we are stronger." "Together," Ryan smiled, his word echoing in the breeze. The sun was bidding farewell, but Laura knew it was just the beginning of a new journey. If this couple's life was in constant flux, they were ready to ride every wave and embrace each new day with courage and love. As the sunset light faded on the horizon, Laura and Ryan were immersed in the magical aura of the beach. The sand beneath their feet was a gentle reminder that they had taken an important step toward something new and unexpected. The experience of surfing together had been more than just fun. It had reinforced their connection, trust, and willingness to face whatever lay ahead. The return home was marked by a mix of euphoria and apprehension. Laura knew she could no longer avoid the conversation with Sarah. The fear of how her sister would react loomed like a cloud over her heart. During the ride, Ryan noticed the change in her expression. "You're thinking about Sarah, aren't you?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Yeah," Laura replied, her voice trembling. "I just hope she can see beyond her feelings about my relationship with you." "I'll be by your side," Ryan affirmed, holding her hand as he drove. His touch brought some comfort, but the anxiety didn't dissipate. The contrast between the vibrant day they had and the uncertainty with her sister was jarring. When they arrived home, the living room was quiet. Sarah was lying on the couch, a pensive expression on her face. As soon as they entered, she got up, looking at them curiously. "Hey, how was the beach?" she asked, her gaze fixed on Laura, as if reading her fear. "It was incredible, Sarah," Laura began, trying to convey a sense of calm. "But we need to talk about something more serious." Ryan remained by Laura's side, his support visible. "We need to be honest with you about our relationship," he added, his voice firm, like an anchor amidst the emotional storm that could come. Sarah frowned, parted her lips, but Laura interrupted. "Ryan and I are together. We're serious about this, and we need you to understand that it's real for us." Silence settled in as an initial response, and Laura could feel the tension in the air. Sarah took a moment to process the words, her gaze shifting between the two. "Why him, Ryan?" The question slipped out like a beam of incredulity. "You know the complications this brings." "I know, Sarah, but I care about Laura and want to be with her. It's not a whim, it's a commitment," Ryan replied, his tone gentle and trustworthy. Even with Sarah's resistance, he had a calmness that spoke louder than words. "And what do you two plan to do when difficulties arise?" Sarah questioned, seeking weaknesses in their relationship. She wanted to protect her sister, but she also had her own prejudices to face. "We promised to be transparent and face everything together. I won't give up on her because of the challenges," Ryan said with determination. Hearing this, Laura felt a wave of gratitude. "Promises are easy to make," Sarah retorted, but there was a small crack in her defense. "What if it doesn't work? What if you hurt her?" "I understand your concern," Laura intervened, trying to be firm. "But this isn't about what you think might happen. It's about how we feel, and we need you to trust us, just as we are learning to trust each other." Sarah observed the two, and a mix of emotions crossed her face. She had the courage to express her distrust, but also the understanding that her sister was growing. "Okay, I'll try. But it's going to take time," she finally said, her voice softer. Laura smiled, a small relief washing over her heart. There was something in Sarah's tentative acceptance that made her believe they could face this as a family. "Thank you, Sarah. We'll make this work, I promise. We need you by our side," Laura said, feeling a new strength emerge between them. Over time, the atmosphere calmed down and began to flow naturally. They talked about what this new phase could mean, the challenges and expectations surrounding their lives. The love between Ryan and Laura was just beginning, but the foundation of trust started to form between them and Sarah. After the conversation, Laura felt lighter. The tension had eased, making room for hope. "Let's face whatever comes with courage and love. Together," Laura affirmed, looking at Ryan, who nodded with a smile. In a moment of shared relief, Sarah joined the group and laughed along with them as they shared stories about their day at the beach. In the following weeks, small advances were made, and Laura saw a new side of her sister. Conversations became more frequent, and barriers began to crumble gradually. As her relationship with Ryan blossomed, Laura felt a growing strength within herself. Trust was a process, but with every challenge they faced together, she saw a possible future. And despite the uncertainties, the path was clear. Love and courage were the best guides through life's storms. A new phase was forming, one that would not only accept differences, but learn to celebrate them. Thus, with their souls intertwined and arms linked, Laura and Ryan embarked on a future that promised to be as exciting and unpredictable as the waves they would one day surf. With the arrival of the local festival, the whole city pulsed with energy and excitement. Laura was thrilled, not just for the festivities, but for the desire to introduce Ryan to her friends. The colorful lights shone brightly, and the food stalls exuded irresistible aromas. She found herself nervous and anxious, the uncertainty of how Ryan would be received lingering in her heart. "Do you think they'll like me?" Ryan joked, trying to break the ice. "If not, I might have to hide in a corner." He smiled, and Laura loved his laid-back demeanor. "You'll do great. They're nice, but you know how people can be curious," Laura replied, trying to convey more confidence than she truly felt. The fear of rejection began to take hold of her, turning into a knot in her stomach. When they arrived at the festival site, Laura's group of friends was having fun around a table, surrounded by laughter and a relaxed atmosphere. "Hey everyone, this is Ryan, my boyfriend," Laura said, not hiding a hint of nervousness in her voice. The warmth of the moment and the attentive gaze of her friends created a tense atmosphere. "Hi, Ryan." The voices rose in harmony, and Laura was filled with a mix of relief. She watched Ryan charm the group with his funny stories and charismatic demeanor. He joked about his surfing attempts, and the laughter was deep and genuine. However, an unexpected question hung in the air. "And what are your intentions with Laura?" Jessica, one of the more direct friends, asked. The atmosphere paused for a moment, and Laura felt her face flush. Ryan took a deep breath, facing the situation. "I care a lot about her. I want her to know that I'm committed to making this work. She's special, he said, with a genuine sincerity that made Laura's heart race. "That's beautiful, but you really understand what it means for her, right?" "We know you're from different worlds," Jessica continued, seeking details. "Yes, I understand and respect our differences. Every relationship has its challenges, but I want to face them alongside Laura," Ryan replied, his voice steady. As the night progressed, the tension began to dissipate. The group asked questions, and Ryan won everyone over with his authentic way. Still, Laura couldn't ignore Sarah's hesitation, watching from a distance with an unreadable expression. In the following days, Laura began to notice subtle changes. Her relationship with her friends became more harmonious, but Sarah still seemed uncertain. It was on a sunny afternoon, during a visit to Ryan's apartment, that Laura began to feel the pressure of their social differences. The apartment had a modern and stylish decor, something that starkly contrasted with the simplicity of her own home. As she admired the decor, Laura felt a pang of insecurity. "I don't think I've ever been in a place like this," she murmured, trying to find words to explain her discomfort. "I just have a different taste, but what really matters is who we are," Ryan replied, noticing her hesitation. "What matters is that we're together, right?" "But what if that's not enough?" Laura asked, anxiety creeping back in. "And what if things change? What if your friends or family don't accept my life?" "We'll face it together, Laura. Love is worth it, and we'll work together to overcome any barrier," Ryan said, keeping his eyes locked on hers. Hearing those words, Laura felt both supported and vulnerable. "I'm here, and I want you to believe that together we are stronger," he continued, moving closer to her. The confidence he exuded began to warm her heart. In that moment, Laura understood that social barriers and family tensions were challenges to be faced, not insurmountable obstacles. With renewed determination and the certainty that the love they shared was genuine, she smiled at Ryan. "Let's make this work, no matter what comes next." As the days went on, Laura and Ryan dedicated themselves to building a relationship based on understanding and acceptance. Honest conversations became more frequent, and Sarah, observing their connection, began to feel more hopeful. The relationship that once seemed like a battlefield was now shaping into a space of love and acceptance. However, Laura knew it would be a process. There was a respect emerging between them, and as Sarah began to see Ryan in a more genuine and authentic way, something inside Laura felt more secure. This new phase of their lives was not just about accepting differences, but learning to celebrate them. Each day, Laura and Ryan grew closer, and the promises they made to each other became stronger. The festival transformed into a symbol of the evolution of their lives. Interactive ceremonies, colorful dances, and vibrant memories continued to fill them with hope. With their love blossoming, Laura felt a growing strength within herself, confident that alongside Ryan, she could face any storm. And as new waves arose, they prepared to surf together, certain that true love could withstand any challenge and that the journey was just beginning. With summer in full swing, Laura and Ryan became inseparable. Laura's group of friends joined them on various adventures at the beach, and the energy between them was contagious. Determined to deepen their connections even further, they organized a beach trip that promised to be unforgettable. For Laura, it was not just fun in the sun, it was an opportunity to introduce Ryan to her family and friends in a more intimate way, solidifying this new chapter in her life. As they arrived at the beach, the summer warmth enveloped them like a cozy hug. The hot sand beneath their feet and the cool sea breeze seemed to set the perfect scene. "I'm ready to become a professional surfer," Ryan said, winking at Laura with a confident smile as they prepared to enter the water. Laura laughed, her heart warming with the joy he radiated. "Only if you don't fall as many times as you did last time." With that, Ryan ran toward the sea, and Laura followed. soon enjoying his falls and the bravery with which he tried to get back up each time. After a few hours of laughter and disastrous attempts at surfing, they reached the peak of joy when they decided to take a break and join the group for a beach picnic. Everyone settled on colorful towels, savoring snacks and laughing. Laura felt lucky watching Ryan loosen up with her friends, his authenticity lighting up the atmosphere. "Last chance for you to enter the competition, Ryan," joked a friend as he saw Ryan stepping away. He smiled, relieved, but there was a determined glint in his eyes. "Only if I get a prize for every time I fall." The joy radiating from his presence was invaluable, making Laura feel how fitting it was to have him by her side. Later, as the sun began to set, casting golden shadows over the sand, Laura decided to open her heart. Gathering her courage, she called Ryan, her friends, and Sarah, who was inching closer, watching with curiosity. "I'd like to share a bit of my journey with everyone," she announced, nervous yet excited. With that, Laura projected images on a small portable projector she had brought. The photos showcased her most precious moments, birthday parties, graduations, and above all, parts of her childhood. With each image, laughter grew, and Sarah, watching from afar, began to feel a little more connected. Ryan, enchanted by the presentation, couldn't help but say, "Laura, you're amazing. These memories are so special." He looked at her with genuine admiration, making her heart race. It was a moment that sealed the connection between the two and also touched the friends present. Sarah smiled at the affection and respect Ryan showed Laura. But Ryan went further. After the presentation, he looked into Laura's eyes and sincerely said, "I want to hear your dreams, Laura. How do you see yourself in the future by my side?" That question caught her off guard, leaving her reflecting on her aspirations. "I've always dreamed of traveling and discovering new places, maybe opening a surf school, sharing my passion," Laura replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I want others to experience the freedom and joy I feel while surfing." Ryan smiled, the energy between them filling the air. "That's beautiful, and I want you to know that I'll be by your side every step of the way, helping in any way I can. Your dream is also mine." His words resonated in Laura's mind like a melody. Looking at him and seeing his determination filled her with hope. As the bonfire began to crackle, Laura stepped back a bit, lost in thought. Tomorrow was uncertain, but the certainty that they had each other made her feel strong. Watching her friends laugh and interact, she felt she had finally found a space where she belonged and was accepted. As night advanced, they snuggled around the bonfire, sharing stories and laughing, the connection between them intensifying. Laura and Ryan showed themselves to be a solid couple, supporting each other. Sarah's gaze, once skeptical, now radiated support and understanding. It was a new phase for them and at the same time a moment of introspection. The social differences still weighed on their relationship, but together they seemed ready to face any storm. "Let's ride the waves of life, no matter how high they are," Laura joked, but with an underlying seriousness, knowing that the journey they were beginning would require a lot of courage. As the night drew to a close and the last glow of the bonfire faded, Laura made a firm resolution. No one knew what the future would bring, but she was determined to embrace every challenge that came her way. With Ryan by her side, she knew that true love could overcome any barrier. They were ready to surf together into the unknown, together, stronger than ever. And so, with their eyes immersed in the stars, Laura surrendered to the future that awaited her gently, filled with hope and love. The days passed quickly after the beach trip, leaving Laura and Ryan with a lasting feeling of joy and unity. In this new phase of their lives, both were determined to face the uncertain forecasts that the future held for them. One sunny afternoon, Laura decided she needed to take an important step toward her dream of opening a surf school. Inspired by the amazing days they had spent together, she began to plan how to put it into practice. "Ryan, I'm thinking about how I can start the school, but I don't know where to begin," she said, a sparkle of excitement in her eyes. Ryan, sitting on his casual sofa while reviewing work documents, looked up and smiled. "Let's start working on that dream then. You have my full support. What do you need?" He spoke with such confidence that Laura felt energized, as if ideas began to flow automatically. "First, I need to understand the necessary permits and, of course, find a place that can be transformed into a welcoming space," Laura replied, already daydreaming. Ryan stood up and approached her, his eyes shining with the excitement of being partners in a big project. "How about we take a trip to the beach, where you'd like to open the school? We can sit and discuss all the ideas while enjoying the sea," he suggested. Laura immediately accepted. It was the perfect opportunity. In the days that followed, Laura and Ryan headed to the beach and were greeted by the salty breeze and the waves gently breaking on the sand. The atmosphere was vibrant. They both sat on the soft sand and began to sketch a list of ideas and plans. With each proposal, Laura's confidence grew. "I want the school to convey the joy and freedom of surfing. It will have classes for all ages and maybe a space for yoga," she said, while drawing an imaginary board in the sand. "And we could include nutritionists to help students maintain a healthy diet," Ryan suggested excitedly, adding to her enthusiasm. With each new idea, Laura felt closer to making her dream a reality. It was more than just a school. It was a portal for others to experience the happiness that surfing brought her. As the sun moved across the sky, their eyes met, and Laura held Ryan's hand, a natural gesture. That connection was deepening, and the trust they felt in each other strengthened their relationship. "Thank you for being by my side. I feel like I couldn't do this without you," Laura expressed, her voice thick with emotion. As they both looked toward the horizon, Ryan enveloped Laura in a warm embrace. "I'll always be here, Laura, and you're about to do something amazing." His words echoed like a promise in the depths of her heart. However, as the days went by and Laura dedicated herself to her idea, some difficulties began to arise. She noticed that some family members, especially Sarah, were worried about the choices being made. One evening, Sarah approached her with a more serious expression than usual. "Laura, do you really think it's wise to commit so much to this? Starting a surf school is a big responsibility. And honestly, life isn't just fun," Sarah commented, nervously laughing as she sat down next to her sister. "I know, Sarah, but this is more than just surfing. It's a passion. It's something I want to share with others," Laura replied, a bit defensively. Sarah looked into her sister's eyes and, seeing her determination, realized this wasn't just a whim. "Then, if this is what you want, I'll support you. Just make sure you're doing it for yourself, and not just because Ryan is by your side," Sarah said, concern still evident in her voice. "I don't want you to lose yourself in this love." Those words penetrated Laura's heart. "I understand what you mean, but it's really a mutual motivation. Ryan is my support, and he also believes in this dream," Laura explained, trying to help Sarah understand the depth of what she was experiencing. Each conversation about the future became an opportunity to strengthen their bond. Laura and Sarah were increasingly understanding each other, which brought a sense of relief and freedom to their interactions. Sarah's concern, though natural, made Laura reflect on her love for Ryan and the influence he had in her life. The week progressed, and the weather was getting warmer in the city, mirroring the intensity of their emotions and projects. The day arrived when Laura decided to host an event to gather potential investors and interested parties for the school. She was nervous, but with Ryan by her side, she felt confident. They organized a pleasant presentation over the weekend at the beach. At the heart of the activity, Laura gave a speech about her vision and the impact she hoped to have. I want to inspire young people and adults to embrace the beauty of surfing and connect with nature, she said, her words flowing as if they had always been on her mind. The audience's gazes were fixed on the passion that radiated from her. Sarah was among the crowd, watching with an encouraging smile. The night ended with warm applause and a renewed connection between Laura and her friends, along with a clearer idea of what her surf school would look like. As the tide changed, Laura and Ryan were ready to navigate together towards a future that, although uncertain, echoed with promises of love and fulfillment. Looking at the horizon, they both knew that with mutual support, they could weather any storm. It was the first step of many, and together they were determined to ride the wave more easily, a burst of dreams and love in the new journey that awaited them. The surf school presentation event was a success. The warmth of the people and the vibrant energy of the beach seemed to align with Laura's ambitions. After that magical night, where she spoke of her aspirations and received support from friends and acquaintances, Laura felt more determined than ever. In the following days, motivated by the positive feedback, she began to shape the project. She spent hours researching best practices in surf instruction, studying how schools in other places operated, and even spoke with experienced instructors about what such a space would need. Ryan became her unwavering partner in this process, encouraging and helping to sketch out the school's format. We need a place that has not only space for lessons, but also a relaxation area and a kiosk where we can sell drinks and snacks, Laura proposed in an informal meeting they set up on her apartment balcony. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the air, and the gentle breeze coming through the window brought the energy of the sea. How about hosting community-building events like tournaments and full moon parties? This could help build a strong community, Ryan suggested enthusiastically, while jotting down ideas in a notebook. He was as immersed in her dream as she was. As the weeks passed, Laura and Ryan gained more support. With growing enthusiasm, they began meeting with potential investors and partners who could help bring the school to life. The meetings were marked by nervousness and expectations, but also by the genuine connection they had with each other. Each time one of them made a presentation, the other was always there, listening attentively and encouraging with meaningful glances. However, the pressure began to take its toll. One night, Laura returned home later than usual and found Ryan on the balcony, lost in thought as he gazed at the stars. The frustration that accompanied her led her to express her discontent. "It's so hard to find investors who truly understand the vision I have in mind. It seems like people see this as just a hobby, not a serious project," she vented, her gaze on the distant horizon. Ryan embraced her, and his presence brought instant comfort. "Sometimes, the best dreams take time to be recognized. Just keep going. This project is important to you, and I will be by your side no matter what," he assured her with his soft, confident voice. Laura's determination was reignited by Ryan's words, even though it had been temporarily overshadowed by uncertainties. He would always encourage what was most authentic within her, and gradually she began to regain her confidence. September brought new winds, and situations began to align as they pursued their dream. Laura organized a new meeting with a group of potential investors, and crucially, some of them were friends of Ryan's mother, influential in the local community. Upon arriving at the event, Laura felt nervous, but she was not alone. Ryan was by her side, squeezing her hand before she took the stage. Looking at the audience, she saw a diverse group, including Sarah, who was there supporting her sister and now seemed more confident in her abilities. Laura's speech was passionate and engaging, and during the interventions, she was pleased to notice that people were genuinely interested. This school is not just about surfing, it's about creating a community space, a place where everyone can come, relax and connect with nature, Laura emphasized, determination resonating in her voice. When the event came to an end, it was not just applause that surrounded her, but a wave of hope and opportunities. Laura realized they had managed to impress with the potential the school could have, and the teamwork enveloped her in renewed energy. A week later, Laura received an offer from one of the investors who had been present. It was a woman with a background in the water sports industry who was interested in helping raise capital for the school. Excitement filled Laura and Ryan, and together they began to shape the next steps. However, as Laura moved forward, she felt insecure about the future. Sarah's past still echoed in her mind, and her sister's voice began to resonate in her head. Would love and dreams coexist even amid so much uncertainty? Determined to clarify this, Laura invited Ryan to dinner. She wanted to discuss how they could balance their lives as the project grew and demands increased. "Ryan, I'm so excited about the offer I received, but I want to make sure I'm not sacrificing our relationship for this. Things are changing, and I need you to know how I feel," Laura began, her hands trembling slightly. "I understand where you're coming from, and I want you to know that I will always support your dreams. We believe in each other, right? I have no doubt we can find ways to balance all of this. Let's talk whenever you need," Ryan said, his voice sincere and his eyes warm. The conversation they had brought vitality to their relationship. Laura was certain that, regardless of the challenges, they were intertwined, and that supporting each other was the key to navigating this new path together. They were ready to face whatever came their way, as inseparable and passionate as ever. And so, as the first autumn breezes rustled the leaves, Laura felt that the tide was changing once again. With a new drive and a steadfast spirit, the two launched into a promising future, ready to ride the waves ahead. Now more than ever, the journey seemed infinitely filled with love and possibilities. The following month brought a series of changes for Laura and Ryan. With the investor's proposal in mind, Laura was eager to take concrete steps toward realizing her dream of opening the surf school. She dedicated herself to developing the project while Ryan continued to encourage and support her at every stage. It was no longer just an idea, it was becoming a tangible reality. Sitting at her desk, surrounded by papers and research printouts, Laura began sketching out the school's planning. "We need a cool name, something that conveys the spirit of the school," she mused aloud, while scribbling various options in a notebook. Ryan, watching her with a smile, decided to join in the creativity. "How about surfing through life?" he suggested, raising his eyebrows playfully. Laura laughed and replied, "That's fun, but we need something more inspired." They both laughed and continued brainstorming, diving into a revitalizing exchange of ideas. This was the kind of moment that strengthened their bond, face to face with their shared passion for surfing and the aspiration to impact lives. After weeks of intense work, Laura received the green light to proceed with the project. The investor was so impressed that she offered to help Laura organize a launch event for the school as well. They decided that the inauguration would feature surfing competitions, workshops, and interactive activities that would showcase how dynamic the school was destined to be. However, as excitement grew, Laura felt a mounting pressure. Even before the event, a whirlwind of emotions was brewing inside her. Would this be the moment to prove that she could balance her personal and professional life? Insecurities began to bubble up. The fear that her efforts might be in vain, and that the love between her and Ryan could be tested at every turn, became evident. While discussing plans with Ryan, Laura realized she had ensured that her performance wouldn't become a burden on their relationship. "Ryan, you're as involved in this project as I am, and I love that. But what if things don't go as we hoped?" she remarked, her gaze now heavy with uncertainties. Laura, if this is your dream, it's what we should pursue, but always communicating with each other. No matter what happens, my love for you won't change. There's no right or wrong path. There's the path we choose together, Ryan replied, holding her hand between his. He was right. From the beginning, they had faced challenges together. Amid the preparations, Sarah began to show a new perspective, accompanying her sister on her journey and becoming interested in the workshops that Laura intended to create. Even initially skeptical, Sarah started to see the value that the school represented for her sister and decided to lend her support. Do you need help with the promotional materials? I can create some cool layouts for you, Sarah offered, reading the mixed expressions of uncertainty and determination on her sister's face. Laura smiled and nodded. It was comforting to know that family support was expanding as they leaned on each other. Finally, the launch day arrived. The beach was adorned with colorful banners and organized kiosks, and the smell of food and light music filled the air. Laura and Ryan met before the event, nervous but buzzing with contagious enthusiasm. "I can't believe we made it this far. Everything feels so perfect," Laura said, her eyes sparkling with a mix of excitement and adrenaline. "You made this happen, Laura. This is just the beginning," Ryan affirmed, holding her hand firmly. In that moment, all the fears that had haunted her seemed to dissipate. The inauguration was a resounding success. The first students signed up for the introductory surfing workshops, and the excitement was palpable among the participants. Laura was radiant as she watched the students experiencing the ocean for the first time, bright smiles lighting up their faces. It was a magical experience. The interactions between the audience and the instructors created an atmosphere of camaraderie and new energy, and the concern Laura felt about balancing her dream and her relationship faded away. With the help of Ryan, Sarah, and their community, the surf school was quickly becoming a local landmark. Amid all that euphoria, Laura realized she was riding a wave of feelings: love, hope, and a new understanding of what it meant to embrace a dream and have support in relationships. During a presentation on the main stage, Laura turned to Ryan. "I don't know what I would do without you. You've brought courage into my life to allow me to be who I am," she said, gratitude shining in her eyes. Ryan, with an emotional smile, stepped closer and whispered, "And this is just the beginning. Together, we can create a sea of opportunities." As the celebration continued and music played in the background, Laura saw what her life had become. Not just a school, but a space of love and acceptance and community. Life was not just about surfing, but about the entirety of the experience she had built with Ryan and Sarah. And so, as she looked at the horizon once more, Laura realized they were ready for any challenge life might throw their way. The love they cultivated as a couple, their dedication to their joint project, and the strengthening of family bonds were the true treasures they had found on this journey. Together, they were finally ready to ride the next wave that would come, fearless and passionate, with open hearts for the opportunities ahead. After the symbolic success of the surf school's opening, Laura and Ryan were on a new level. The vibrant energy of the place reflected the enthusiasm of the new students and the support of the community, creating a space that pulsed with life and joy. For Laura, seeing those smiling faces enjoying the ocean brought indescribable satisfaction. Each interaction was filled with discoveries, and the school was becoming a safe haven for everyone. However, as the pace of the school intensified, Laura began to feel the weight of responsibilities. The routines became exhausting, and the pressure to maintain the success and enthusiasm of the project threatened their moments alone together. "What we're doing is magical, but I feel like we're losing what's special between us," Laura admitted in a conversation after a long day of work. Ryan looked at her with understanding in his eyes. "It's true, Laura. What we've built here is so important, but we need to find a way to take care of ourselves too. How about we plan a day just for us? Something that reminds us why we're together," he suggested, his tone encouraging. The idea excited Laura. "Yes, we can go to that beach we love. We can surf and relax, just the two of us," she replied, already dreaming of the perfect day they could have. An invitation to reconnect and the spirit of adventure that had brought them together. That weekend, early in the morning, they headed to the beach. The sun was shining brightly, and the sound of the waves crashing created a relaxing symphony. As soon as they arrived at the location, a smile spread across Laura's face. They took the surfboards out of the car and prepared to hit the water. Surfing together, they rediscovered the joy and excitement they felt when spending hours under the sky. Any worries seemed to disappear with each wave they rode. After some time having fun and laughing, the couple sat on the sand, exhausted but happy, admiring the sunset. "These moments are essential. They remind us of the reasons we started all of this," Ryan commented, watching the golden light reflecting on the waves. "You're right. With everything happening at the school, sometimes I forget to stop and just appreciate what we have." "I'm so grateful to have you by my side," Laura said, looking at him with love. It was a simple moment, but full of meaning. After that refreshing day, Laura and Ryan returned to the school routine with a new perspective. Amidst the laughter and joy of the team and students, she felt renewed. Recognizing that the condition of shifts and the time for dedication were essential, Laura decided to implement a shift system where each team member could have their own time off, thus preventing burnout. With Sarah by her side, as she had become an important part of the school's creative process, Laura began to envision a surfing competition. What if we organized a surfing event to bring the community together? This could attract new students and create a spirit of unity, Sarah suggested, full of enthusiasm. The idea energized Laura. "Absolutely! We can have various contests and workshops. Everyone could sign up, and we'd have attractions for the whole family," she replied, filled with excitement. The conversation flowed, and soon they were outlining plans and seeking partnerships for the event. On the day of the competition, the beach transformed into a festival. Colorful banners and food stalls offering local foods created a festive atmosphere. Laura was both nervous and excited, but the warmth of the community enveloped her like a tight hug. Her heart raced with every laugh and every cheer echoing around. The competitions brought a mix of emotions. The waves, perfect for surfing, and the interactions among participants generated a camaraderie. Laura realized that everything they had planned was coming together into something fantastic. She looked at Ryan, who was nearby, helping to organize logistics. He saw her and gave an encouraging smile. Throughout the day, the two shared moments of fun and cheering together, solidifying their partnership in both love and business. When it was time for the awards ceremony, Laura stepped onto the stage in front of an excited crowd. With a microphone in hand, she looked at the radiant faces and said, "I'm so happy to see this community united. Today is not just about competitions, but about what we can build together when we believe. This place is as much ours as the waves we surf." The vibrant applause filled the air, and a feeling of accomplishment embraced Laura. At the end of the event, as she watched the stars appear in the sky and soft music played in the background, Laura felt that day had solidified not only the school, but the unbreakable bond she had with Ryan and the support of Sarah. They were not just riding the waves, but also creating an ever-growing story full of love. Together, they were ready to face whatever came their way and surf any sea that destiny had in store, with courage, love, and the certainty that, united, they would reach wherever they wanted. The echo of applause still reverberated in the air as Laura stepped down from the stage, her heart overflowing with joy. The surfing competition had been a resounding success. The community was more united than ever. Feeling revitalized, she searched for Ryan among the crowd and found him animatedly chatting with a group of students. The sparkle in his eyes reflected the accomplishment they both shared. "Laura!" he called, approaching with a wide smile. "You were amazing up there. The energy from the crowd was contagious. I lost count of how many people came to thank me for putting this event together. You really transformed the school into a special place." "This is just the beginning, Ryan. I believe we can make this happen every season, celebrating our passion for surfing and strengthening these bonds even more," Laura exclaimed, her enthusiasm evident. As they walked away from the beach, the conversation continued to flow. Strolling under the soft moonlight, she realized how each step together brought them closer. It was during that walk that they could share their hopes and dreams. Ryan held her hand, and together they built plans for the future, not just for the school, but for their lives. "Now that we have this community support, what do you think about expanding the workshops? We could include yoga classes, meditation, and even healthy cooking classes. It would be a way to attract even more people and strengthen the bonds," Ryan suggested, visibly excited about the idea. "I love it. This could create a much more inclusive and diverse environment. Let's make the community feel at home here, not just during competitions, but in everyday life," Laura replied, already visualizing the positive impact this could have. Back at the school, while organizing the structure of a new program, Laura and Ryan began reviewing feedback from students and community members. The reception was overwhelming, and their passion for the plans mirrored everyone's willingness to participate. Sarah, as soon as she heard about the new ideas, took the lead and helped refine the program schedule. Her sister's involvement was vital, and Laura felt that the project was becoming a channel for family unity. Weeks passed quickly, and the community's enthusiasm grew. Laura dedicated herself to coordinating the new activities, and Ryan's presence by her side was a constant reminder of support. One Saturday, the school was bustling. Instructors were preparing, students arrived excited, and new faces were welcomed with warm smiles. One of the students, Michael, approached Laura and Ryan, expressing interest in surfing but with some fears. With the courage of someone learning to challenge themselves, he said, "I've always wanted to surf, but the fear is strong. Can I try the beginner classes?" "Of course, Michael. Everyone starts somewhere. The important thing is that you're willing to try. We'll be here to support you," Ryan encouraged him, while Laura added, "And practice only makes you better. Every wave is a chance to learn and have fun." Laura saw how the school was becoming one of the pillars of the community, a place where people were welcomed, encouraged, and challenged to grow. The yoga classes, which took place by the sea, created a moment of calm and introspection, where many discovered not only the practice, but also a space for mental and emotional renewal. Amid this frenzy of activities, a reflection began to take hold of Laura's heart. She realized how important participation and connection with the community were, but she also questioned how her own relationship with Ryan was evolving. During a conversation one evening, as they settled around the bonfire, Laura asked, "Ryan, do you feel like we're prioritizing the school so much that sometimes we're neglecting who we are?" Ryan looked at her for a moment. "Well, we're passionately dedicated to this, but our moments also need to be valued, like the one we're having right now," he replied. "And whenever there's something you feel we need to adjust, we can talk about it. It's essential that we continue to grow together, not just in the school, but also in our relationship." Ryan's words touched Laura deeply. "It's true. I'm so focused on making this work that sometimes I forget to be myself, to enjoy the little joys of our relationship." He held her hand, his eyes fixed on hers. "How about we plan a day just for us? A day without school, without responsibilities, just the two of us and the waves. Yes, we need that to rebalance. Let's surf and enjoy life to the fullest, Laura replied, feeling the weight of doubts and insecurities lift away. The connection they had was not only visible in their achievements, but also in the mutual understanding that allowing themselves to be vulnerable was a crucial part of the love they had built. The calendar was now filled with events and new ideas, but Laura and Ryan had learned the importance of nurturing their love as much as they nurtured their ambitions. With each passing year, the surf school became not only a dream, realized, but also a symbol of the strength that love united. Through the waves, a construction every day, their growing love materialized in everything they were building together. And so, with open hearts and memories of summer days, the couple moved forward fearlessly, ready to ride the next waves that life had in store for them, hand in hand, always strengthening one another. The horizon expanding before them seemed filled with possibilities, like the waves swaying, waiting for them, heralding the journey that still lay ahead.